Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com, and today we're going to talk about the hack fuel pump upgrade that I really didn't want to make. When you add a turbocharger to a vehicle that did not come with one from the factory, you need to make a whole lot of ancillary upgrades to the car as well. Exhaust, intake, charge cooler most likely, and one of the other big upgrades is the fuel system. Now with the kit that we put on, it had injectors as part of it, so we're good there. But I also wanted to make sure that the system that delivered the fuel from the tank up to those brand new injectors was up to the task of delivering more fuel. After some research and some guidance, it seemed to be upgrading the in-tank pump was going to be the best route. We could have added an inline pump and that would have delivered more fuel, but that also has some inherent negatives as well. We're adding a pump outside the vehicle. It's going to be loud. If the in-tank pump fails, it will suck fuel until it's dry, and then now you have two fuel pumps you have to replace. So that's not the perfect solution, although it can be a great one for an upgrade. But going the in-tank route was the way that I decided to go very early in the build. Like, I bought this in-tank pump when I bought the turbo kit. Going into doing this upgrade and doing the video surrounding it, in my head it was, okay, we're gonna show everybody how to take the pump out, disassemble the housing, swap on the actual pump, put it back in, do a fuel filter, because you should do that anyway, and we'd be good to go, right? Well, that lasted all until the point of where I got the cover off of the fuel pump and found that the lines were cracked. This wasn't actually that big of a deal. Fuel never touches this. And even when I first noticed it, I thought, hey, I'm probably gonna have to at least replace the top portion. I didn't actually have to do that. This was a place where I did feel pretty comfortable just putting some epoxy on and strengthening that connection up a little bit. From there, it kind of all went downhill. Removing the pump, of course, is very simple, and I did a video on showing you guys exactly how to do that. I'll link it down in the description and up in the corners as well. So that was really easy. The not easy, or the part where we move into the world of replacing it properly as an OEM dealership technician that has a very high standard of the way things should be, to what I did was actually swapping the electrical pump. As I started disassembling the pump, I realized that the OE pump, the original Mark III pump, had a tiny impeller lower than the electrical portion. So the way it works is that tiny impeller is spun by the fuel pump. It draws fuel up and fills the bowl so that fuel's always drawn out from the bowl, not from the actual tank. And this is really important because in heavy cornering situations, low fuel levels, you don't have to worry about the pump pulling air, cavitating, and causing a drivability problem, or even worse, because it's not pulling fuel. That is always full of fuel. Well, the pump that I bought didn't have that little pin that stuck down to drive the impeller. Because of that, I was already a little concerned, but let's go ahead and take the pump the rest of the way apart and see just what we're going to need to do to make it work. In the next step of disassembling the fuel pump, it may come as no surprise, we're working with 20-year-old plus plastic that's been saturated in fuel its whole life. It gets really, really hard and really, really brittle. It loses that flexibility that I think a new housing would have had. The pump is held in the bottom part by 3 plastic tabs and a little housing piece. Well, 2 of the 3 tabs, of course, broke. Bummer, wah wah. Okay, let's put that to the side and we'll keep moving forward because we gotta figure out how to make this pump work. We've already purchased the pump. I don't wanna spend $500 on a new housing, plus still have to upgrade to a different pump. So finished the disassembly, everything else went pretty okay. As we examined the pump, I could have left the whole bottom piece out altogether, but then we eliminate the screen that protects the pump from debris. We have a fuel filter that protects injectors and engine from debris in the fuel, but this screen is vital because if any little flake of anything comes in through the return side or is in the fuel tank, as you're pumping gas into your car, it'll get sucked up into the pump and we run the risk of damaging it. So I didn't want to run no screen at all. This meant it was time to start modifying. The big concern here is setting the level properly of the in-tank pump as compared to where the level of the impeller was on the factory one. Had I just dropped the pump into the housing, it would have been way too high. This could result in starvation issues on low fuel level or under cornering situations, or driving up and down mountains, which I really plan to do with this car. So I didn't want to ever have to worry about, if you drop at a quarter of a tank, your car's not going to run right. Now, to be fair, this is what we can consider a performance vehicle in some way. We don't want to run at that low of fuel anyway, but I didn't want to have that as something else in addition to all the other things I'm worried about while breaking this car in and while driving, something else to worry about. So out comes the Dremel, and we remove material and remove and remove and trim and cut and remove and remove and remove and remove and take material away until the pump kind of fits. But you can only take so much of this housing out before it won't hold the pump in at all. And that's the part that holds in the screen, so we have to make sure we put it back. I got the lower portion trimmed out enough where I felt like the level of the pump was really close to the level of the impeller. It may be a few millimeters higher, but I think it's going to be okay. One of the other issues I ran into is the pump body was actually a smaller diameter than the original pump. This actually wasn't a big deal. The install kit that came with the pump had a foam insert that I was able to use. This is a fuel-safe foam insert that is for this kind of thing. So simply dropping that insert in and using it with the pump took care of my space issue inside that housing. Feeling okay about where we were at with the pump, it was time to put it together and do a final test fitment. But you may remember back that the tabs broke. What are we gonna do? I didn't really love the idea of just simply epoxying it back together. There are epoxies that are fuel safe because, well, we can repair fuel tanks with it, but I wasn't 100% comfortable with doing it that way. So out comes the hot knife and plastic weld we go. I was able to get it back together, simply melting that plastic and essentially making it one piece by melting these plastics together. It's strong, it should hold up perfectly. We don't have to worry about fuel breaking it down over time. From here on out, it was pretty much straightforward assembling the pump back together, cutting and splicing a new wiring connector in, which is no big deal at all. It came with all the components that it needed, dropping the pump back in and putting on a new fuel filter. Now, the pump works great. You'll see the fuel level here. I had that amount of fuel in till, well, frankly, till I put more fuel in it and I didn't have any issues. This brings me around though to really the overall thing with this fuel pump is a couple of things. One, I had an expectation that this was going to be remove old pump, drop new pump in, maybe fudge a little bit, but that was it. I did not expect to have to cut and grind and plastic weld, which wasn't really the fault of anyone but my own for breaking it. I wasn't expecting to have to do that to that housing, but I felt like even doing that, we were in a better situation than putting the old 20-plus-year-old pump back in the car. As a dealership technician, as someone that has spent their career making whatever I was doing look like it came from the factory that way, behave like it came from the factory that way, make it so that the customer never knew you touched a single thing on their car, this is really hard for me. To step out of that comfort zone and modify things in a manner that I don't love. I would have preferred the right pump. I would have preferred something that fit exactly or functioned exactly, or fit and functioned really exactly the way the original one was. So this has been a struggle for me. I'm putting myself out of my comfort zone, although I do think this will work absolutely fine and I don't foresee any issues with what I've done to make this hack repair. It is way out of my comfort zone. And as you guys know that are dealer techs, you probably have a very similar mindset of this was designed in a certain way and we are trying to reinvent the wheel with it when the design of it was never a problem. The component might fail, that's fine. And there are some designs that are just off the wall crazy, but the design of this was really good. Why are we going to induce more risk by changing it? Well, friends, that's just sometimes what you have to do. I wasn't in love with this going in. I wasn't in love with it at all during the process, but I got it done, and I think it's going to work perfect. And it is fun to see what your brain can come up with when you give it this problem that it has to solve. I didn't want to spend $500 on a new pump from the dealership. I didn't want to spend $600 on an upgraded aftermarket pump that anytime it got below a half a tank would sound like there's a helicopter in the trunk of the car. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted this car, and I want it going forward to function as though everything that we've done to it was that way from the factory. So there you go. If you want to hack modify your fuel pump, I just walked you through everything I had to do to it. It's actually not that hard once you can see the final vision. And for me, get out of my dealership technician, it has to be perfect. OEM is the only way. Brain, and start thinking differently, which, guys, I'm bearing my soul here to you, to be honest, is very, very challenging. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Questions, comments, you know what to do. If you like the video, thumbs up. Always appreciate that. It'll be interesting to see how many people thumbs down this video for this hack repair. If you want exclusive content discounts you can't get anywhere else, to places like Black Forest, Eastwood, MT9, Sonic Tools, Eurowise, Petrol Box, and more, check out the Crew membership program. Great way to score yourself some awesome discounts to those places I mentioned and more, as well as support the show. If that's not your flavor, check out the Patreon. You guys asked me to set it up, so I did. It's out there for you. Or if you want the free one, the easy one, mash that Amazon link and use that when you shop on Amazon. You get a little credit for it. So all those are awesome, and I appreciate every one of them. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on Snapchat. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm excited the fuel pump worked out. The car runs beautiful. It's getting the roof fixed right now. There was some rust damage that I wanted taken care of. Plus, as I get ready to go to SEMA, it's parked there and safe. Anyway, so with that, I'm out. Guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.